Welcome to the Bible in a Year Live Tanakh Project podcast. This is day 3 of week 35, and we'll, of course, continue to read from the complete Jewish Bible. In the book of Daniel 3:31 and 6:29, God reveals his sovereign power over kings and kingdoms as he humbles rulers, judges pride, and delivers his faithful servant, proving that his dominion endures forever. Let's read Daniel 3:31. The following letter was sent out from Nebuchadnezzar the king to all the peoples, nations, and languages living throughout the earth. Shalom Rav, abundant peace. I am pleased to recount the signs and wonders which the Most High God has done for me. How great are his signs! How powerful his wonders! His kingdom lasts forever, and he rules all generations. Daniel 4. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was contentedly living at home, enjoying the luxury of my palace. But as I lay on my bed, I had a dream which frightened me, followed by fantasies and visions in my head, which frightened me even more. So I ordered all the sages of Babel to present themselves to me, so that they could tell me the interpretation of the dream. When the magicians, exorcists, astrologers, and diviners came, I told them the dream, but they couldn't interpret it for me. Finally, however, Daniel, renamed Belteshazzar after the name of my God, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, came before me, and I told him the dream. Belshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no mystery is too difficult for you. Tell me the meaning of the visions I saw in my dream. Here are the visions I had in my head as I lay on my bed. I looked, and there before me was a tree at the center of the earth. It was very tall. The tree grew and became strong until its crown reached the sky, and it could be seen from everywhere on earth. Its foliage was beautiful and its fruit abundant. It produced enough food for everyone. The wild animals enjoyed its shade. The birds in the air lived in its branches, and it gave food to every living creature. I looked in the visions of my head as I lay on my bed, and there appeared a holy water coming down from heaven. He cried out, cut down the tree, cut off its branches, strip off its leaves, scatter its fruit. Let the wild animals flee from its shelter, let the birds abandon its branches, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground, with a band of iron and bronze. In the lush grass of the countryside, let him be drenched with dew from the sky, and share the lot of animals in the pasture. Let his heart and mind cease to be human and become those of an animal, and let 7 seasons pass over him. This order is issued by the watchers. The sentence is announced by the holy ones, so that all who live may know that the Most High rules the human kingdom, that he gives it to whomever he wishes, and can raise up over it the lowliest of mortals. This is the dream which I, King Nebuchadnezzar, saw. Now you, Belshazzar, tell me its interpretation. None of the sages of my kingdom can tell me the interpretation, but you can do it, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, was in shock a while, frightened by his thoughts. The king said, Belshazzar, don't let the dream or the interpretation frighten you. Belshazzar answered, my lord, if only the dream were about those who hate you, and the interpretation about your enemies. The tree you saw, which grew and became strong until its crown reached the sky, and its could be seen throughout the whole earth. That had beautiful foliage and abundant fruit, enough to feed everyone, under which the wild animals lived, and on whose branches the birds in the air built their nests. It's you, your majesty. You have grown and become strong. Your greatness has grown and reaches the heaven, and your rule extends to the end of the earth. Now the king saw a holy watcher coming down from heaven, who said, "Cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground, with a band of iron and bronze, in the lush grass of the countryside. Let him be drenched with dew from the sky, and share the lot of the wild animals until 7 persons pass over him." This is the interpretation, your majesty, and it is the decree of the Most High that has come upon my lord the king. You will be driven from human society to live with wild animals. You'll be made to eat grass like an ox and be drenched with dew from the sky, as 7 seasons pass over you, until you learn that the Most High rules in the human kingdom and gives it to whomever he pleases. But since it was ordered to leave the stump of the tree with its roots, your kingdom will be kept for you until you have learned that heaven rules everything. Therefore, your majesty, please take my advice. Break with your sins by replacing them with acts of charity, and break with your crimes by showing mercy to the poor. This may extend the time of your prosperity. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, as he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babel, the king said, "Babel the Great, I built it as a royal residence by my power and force to enhance the glory of my majesty." No sooner had the king spoken these words when a voice came down from heaven. "King Nebuchadnezzar, these words are for you. The kingdom has left you. You will be driven from human society to live with the wild animals. You will be made to eat grass like an ox and be drenched with dew from the sky, and 7 seasons pass over you until you learn that the Most High rules in the human kingdom and gives it to whomever he pleases." Within the hour, the word was fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like an ox, and his body was drenched with dew from the sky, until his hair had grown like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird's claws. When this period was over, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes toward heaven, and my understanding came back to me. I blessed the Most High. I praised and gave honor to him who lives forever. For his ruleship is everlasting. His kingdom endures throughout all generations. All who live on earth are counted as nothing. He does what he wishes with the army of heaven and with those living on earth. No one can hold back his hand or ask him, "What are you doing?" It was at that moment that my understanding came back to me, and for the sake of the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and splendor also came back to me. My advisors and lords sought me out. I was reestablished in my kingdom, and to my previous greatness, even more was added. So now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are truth, and his ways are just, and he can humble those who walk in pride. Daniel 5. Belshazzar the king gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his lords, and in the presence of the 1,000 he was drinking wine. While tasting the wine, Belshazzar ordered that the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had removed from the temple in Jerusalem be brought, so that the king, his lords, his wives, and his concubines could drink from them. So they brought the gold vessels which had been removed from the sanctuary of the house of God in Jerusalem. And the king, his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank their wine and praised their gods. made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and began writing on the plaster of the palace wall by the lampstand. When the king saw the palm of the hand that was writing, the king's face took on a different look as frightening thoughts rose up within him. His hip joints gave way and his knees started knocking together. The king cried out to bring in the exorcists, astrologers, and diviners. The king said to the sages of Babel, "Whoever can read this inscription and tell me what it means will be dressed in royal purple, wear a gold chain around his neck, and be one of the three men ruling the kingdom." But although all the king's sages came in, none could read the inscription or tell the king what it meant. Then King Belshazzar became terrified. His face turned pale, and his lords were thrown into confusion. At this point, the queen mother, because of what the king and his lords were saying, entered the banquet hall. The queen mother said, "May the king live forever. Don't be scared by your thoughts or let your face be so pale. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, he was found to have light discernment and wisdom like the wisdom of the gods. King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, the king, your father, made him chief of magicians, exorcists, astrologers, and diviners, because he was found to have an extraordinary spirit, knowledge, discernment, and the ability to interpret dreams, unlock mysteries, and solve knotty problems. He is called Daniel, but the king gave him the name Belshazzar. No, have Daniel summoned, and he will tell you what this means. Daniel was brought into the king's presence. The king said to Daniel, "Are you Daniel, one of the exiles from Yehuda, whom the king my father brought out of Yehuda? I've heard about you that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that you have been found to have light discernment and extraordinary wisdom. Now the sages, the exorcists, were brought into me so that they could read this inscription and tell me what it means, but they couldn't interpret it for me. However, I've heard that you can give interpretations and solve knotty problems. Now, if you can read the inscription and tell me what it means, you will be dressed in royal purple, wear a gold chain around your neck, and be one of the three men ruling in the kingdom." Daniel answered the king, "Keep your gifts and give your rewards to someone else. However, I will read the inscription to the king and tell him what it means. Your Majesty, the Most High God, gave Nebuchadnezzar your father the kingdom, as well as greatness, glory, and majesty. Because of the greatness he gave him, all the peoples, nations, and languages trembled with fear before him. Anyone he wanted to, he put to death. Anyone he wanted to, he kept alive. Anyone he wanted to, he advanced. And anyone he wanted to, he humbled. But when he grew proud and his spirit became hard, he began treating people arrogantly. So he was disposed from his royal throne, and his glory was taken away from him. He was driven from human society. His heart was made like that of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys. He was fed with grass like an ox, and his body was drenched with dew from the sky, until he learned that the Most High God rules in the human kingdom and sets up over it whomever he pleases. But Belshazzar, you, his son, have not humbled your heart, even though you knew all this. Instead, you have exalted yourself against the Lord of heaven by having them bring you the vessels from his house, and you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines drank wine from them. Then you offered praise to your gods of silver, gold, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which can't see, hear, or know anything. Meanwhile, God, who holds your very breath in his hands, and to whom belongs everything you do, you have not glorified. This is why he sent the hand to write the inscription. And the inscription says, Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin. This is what it means. Mene, God has counted up your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you are weighed on the balance scale and come up short. Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the order, and they clothed Daniel in royal purple, put a gold chain around his neck, and proclaimed of him that he was to be one of the 3 men ruling the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, the king of the Kasdim, was killed. Daniel 6. The kingdom passed to Darius the Mede when he was about 62 years old. Darius decided to set over the kingdom 120 viceroys to rule throughout the entire kingdom, with 3 chiefs over them, of whom Daniel was one, so that these viceroys could be responsible to them and so that the king's interests would be safeguarded. But because an extraordinary spirit was in this Daniel, he so distinguished himself above the other chiefs and the viceroys that the king considered putting him in charge of the whole kingdom. The other chiefs and viceroys tried to find a cause for complaint against Daniel in regard to how he performed his governing duties, but they could find nothing to complain about, no fault. On the contrary, because he was so faithful, not a single instance of negligence or faulty administration could be found. Then these men said, We're not going to find any cause for complaint against this Daniel unless we can find something against him in regard to the law of his God. So these chiefs and viceroys descended on the king and said to him, King Darius, live forever. All the chiefs of the kingdom, along with the prefects, viceroys, advisors, and governors, have met and agreed that the king should issue a decree putting in force the following law. Whoever makes a request to any god or man during the next 30 days, except of you, your majesty, is to be thrown into the pit of a lion. Now, your majesty, issue the decree over your signature so that it cannot be revoked, as required by the law of the Medes and Persians, which is itself irrevocable. So King Darius signed the document, and the decree became law. On learning that the document had been signed, Daniel went home. The windows of his upstairs room were open in the direction of Jerusalem. And there he kneeled down 3 times a day and prayed, giving thanks before his God, just as he had been doing before. Then these men descended on Daniel and found him making his requests and pleading before his God. So they went to remind the king of his royal decree. Didn't you sign a law prohibiting anyone from making requests of any god or man within 30 days, except yourself, your majesty, on pain of being thrown into the lion pit? The king answered, Yes, that is true, as required by the law of the Medes and the Persians, which it is itself irrevocable. They replied to the king, That Daniel, one of the exiles from Yehuda, respects neither you, your majesty, nor the decree you signed. Instead, he continues praying 3 times a day. When the king heard this report, he was very upset. He determined to save Daniel and worked until sunset to find a way to rescue him. But these men descended on the king and said to him, Remember, your majesty, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no decree or edicts, once issued by the king, can be revoked. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion pit. The king said to Daniel, Your God, whom you are always serving, will save you. A stone was brought to block the opening of the pit, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, so that nothing concerning Daniel could be changed. Then the king returned to his palace. He spent the night fasting and refusing to be entertained, as sleep eluded him. Early in the morning, the king got up and hurried to the lion pit. On approaching the pit where Daniel was, the king cried in a pained voice to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you are always serving, been able to save you from the lions? Then Daniel answered the king, May the king live forever. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths, so they haven't hurt me. This is because before him I was found innocent, and also I have done no harm to you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and ordered Daniel to be taken up from the pit. So Daniel was taken up from the pit, and he was found to be completely unharmed because he had trusted in his God. Then the king gave an order, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they threw them into the lion pit, them, their children, and their wives. And before they even reached the bottom of the pit, the lions had them in their control and broke all their bones to pieces. King Darius wrote all the peoples, nations, and languages living anywhere on earth. Shalom Rav, abundant peace. I herewith issue a decree that everyone in my kingdom, people, are to tremble and be in awe of the God of Daniel. For he is the living God. He endures forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed. His rulership will last till the end. He saves, rescues, does signs and wonders, both in heaven and on earth. He delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and also during the reign of Koresh the Persian. Amen.